Hey everybody, JTISREBORN here, and welcome to another edition of my Batman the Animated Series reviews. This time we're going to be taking a look at episode number 50, Off Balance. Holy shit, we're at 50 right now. I know it's taking me a while to get through these. I mean, originally I was filming them in person, but honestly doing like a bunch of these like kind of voiceover like this, just watching the episode and then recording this is a bit easier, and then I have to worry about setup and getting the camera and the lighting and all that situated. I just think this is easier, and plus you can just look at images and you kind of listen to it more of an audio format. I know these aren't the highest of quality, and I understand that. They could be a lot better, but, time and effort, I mean, I'd have to dedicate way more time to editing this, and I got other stuff to do, and I just kind of want to get through this to just get to, the written review I'm going to do on the whole series. But, you know what, let's worry about that later. Let's talk about Off Balance. Now, this episode is a special episode because it marks the first appearance of Talia al Ghul, and then there's also the first ever appearance of Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, or how do they pronounce it again? Take it away, Batman Beyond.
Very thorough, Terry. Though father's name was pronounced Raish, not Raz. A common mistake.
Okay, Batman Beyond says one thing, lots of other people say other things. Bottom line, Raish, Raz, whatever you want to call him, Mr. Ghul is what I'm going to call him, because Chris Nolan and that, they called him Ra's al Ghul, this show they called him Raish, video games call him Raish. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I guess you can pronounce it both ways. But anyways, let's talk about this episode. So this episode's Off Balance. Basically, there's these guys from the Society of Shadows who are working with some guy named Vertigo, or who is actually a Green Arrow villain. And basically, Count Vertigo, as he's known in the comics, that has this little thing on his eye that distorts, people's perception, and that makes them you ever go through one of those trippy mazes in a Halloween haunted house or something like that? That's kind of what it's like. I've been in some of those things, and it's just you can't see or tell where anything is. You're blinded by light and all that. I've gotten lost in some of those things. My vision's I can't see a damn thing. My perception's all distorted. That's kind of how Count Vertigo is as a villain. And he's got his haircut and all that. He definitely looks like a 90s cartoon villain. A lot of these bad guys had kind of that same hairstyle that he does. It kind of reminded me a bit of that Captain Planet mullet type hairdo that you'd find in other shows at the time. And as a villain, he's kind of just there. He at the end of this episode, he falls off a tower after some bells go off, and we never see him again. So we don't know if he lived or died, but I guess we can assume that he just vanished completely forever. But anyway, so in this episode, he steals this device, which is able to. It's some drill meant to help with building, or you know what I mean, knocking down things. So anyways, it's whatever it's called, this sonic device that destroys things. They'll just use it as that. Think of it as moving stuff, knocking down buildings, blah 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 blah, and yada yada yada. So anyways, he steals the device, and during the time Batman sees Talia al Ghul, and he's like, who's that woman? She's got to be working with them. Then she goes to try and take it again, and both of them get captured, and then to attend to his wounds, Talia took off his mask. And so she now sees his identity. She doesn't know his name entirely yet, but she did see his face. So she's she's seen his face, she attended his wounds, and then they're trying to escape the thing. They're kind of working together. And, Bruce and Talia are pretty good, and then they get trapped in this room, and Batman has to rely on his other senses. So Daredevil would have passed this easily, but Batman, he does a pretty good job too. So, anyways, he escapes. They escape the room, they stop Vertigo, Talia takes the drill or whatever away. Batman kind of sabotages it because he could tell that she was kind of maybe not all she's, led up to be. And basically from there, she's flies off in her plane. Batman's this isn't over. She tries to test the drill and it gets destroyed. And she's also on a video call with Ra's al Ghul. I'm going to call him Raish since that's what he's said in the show. And it's a good tease for the future. That's what I really appreciate about this episode. It's a good way to set up things for the future events that are going to take place. And this is one that the Ra's al Ghul stuff, or Mr. Ghul, whatever. The Mr. Ghul stuff is what I've kind of been most looking forward to rewatching in terms of Batman the Animated Series, because I really liked Mr. Ghul in Batman the Animated Series. I always thought that was the definitive take on him in terms of his character, and also the Arkham games are pretty good too. But like live action, we got him in Arrow, and he definitely was a very huge disappointment for me because I'm like, oh man, I thought he was going to be cool, but he really just sucked. And especially after those first 2 seasons of Arrow, then season 3 is really when things kind of went to shit. Even though like they kind of, and then season 4 was like the same way. Although they had Damien Dark, who was pretty great, and then like season 5 they had Adrian Chase, who like upped the game again, and then now they're on season 6, and it's really just unwatchable at this point. I just am like, man, what the hell happened? But Liam Neeson, same deal. I thought he was fine, but like he wasn't up to standards of like the Ra's al Ghul or Mr. Ghul or Ra's al Ghul. I'm just gonna say all three of them. He wasn't up to standards of the Mr. Ghul that we know and love from the DC animated universe, which I believe is his first ever appearance in film or TV. Is in this, but I do think this episode does a great job, kind of like teasing things, like they're setting things up for future episodes, which is what I appreciate. It's not overdone. It's like, okay, he calls him detective, and I thought that was pretty cool. Talia's there too, and yeah, just like kind of like Bruce and Talia have some good like on-screen chemistry a bit going on there. And one of the things that kind of makes me wonder like how this episode would be written today, considering how in like the comics nowadays Bruce and Talia have a kid together, and I've always kind of wondered that like how would things be done now? Like would they have set things up differently had they known of Damian Wayne? Would things be kind of different there? Because Damian Wayne's my personal favorite Robin, because he's like just kind of like how his development goes on, and like even in the comics nowadays he's constantly changing and stuff too. But I always kind of wondered like if the DC animated universe was made known of him, would he have factored into it? So that's kind of one of the things that makes me wonder, like, how the DC animated universe would have turned out had, like, he, like, been, like, aware of the comics with Damian in them at the time. But yeah, so anyways, this episode does a good job setting things up. I do really like this episode. It's not the best Ra's Mr. Ghul centered episode that you're going to get, but because he's not really, like, in it. But like it definitely does a good job of kind of like teasing things for the future and setting things up for later on down the road. And Bruce and Talia, it's just like, oh, she's kind of this interesting character who at the time, like when I was first watching this, like I had no idea about. But then like over the course of the next couple episodes, you're like, oh, like this cool spy in that who like kind of gets like the best of Batman at times. I thought outside of Catwoman, I feel like probably Talia is like Batman's like number 2 girl, and then after that, it could kind of be a bit of anyone really. Some people say Wonder Woman, some people say like Vicky Vale, or some people even say Zatanna, or Silver St. Cloud. But basically, like for me, it's really just like Catwoman's always kind of number 1 for him, and then number 2 is always Talia. So. But that's just me. But anyways, what did you all think of this episode? Do you like the teases that it starts by like showcasing how Ra's al Ghul, Mr. Ghul is going to be showing up later on in the show? Like that voice is like iconic to me. He's like detective. By the way, if they were doing a live action like Ra's al Ghul in the DC extended universe, the movie universe, I do think like Oded Fehr from like The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, like that dude, he'd make a great Mr. Ghul. I think he just seems like pitch perfect for the part. And in terms of Talia al Ghul, I'm not sure who I would cast. Part of me would like a Kate Beckinsale or an Eva Green in the part, but yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool to see. Anyways, I want to thank you all for watching this. I hope you enjoyed. It was fun. I like this episode off balance, and as you can see, I'm still talking, so I definitely had a lot to say about this episode, but hard to believe we're already on episode 50, so yeah. Yep, that's all I gotta say about this one. I'm not sure what else I can add to it. I really like this episode, episode 50, and I'm looking forward to talking about more of the Mr. Ghul stuff later on down the road, because it's a good teaser for what's to come. So, in terms of like a standalone, if this episode was just kind of standalone, it really wouldn't stand out on its own, but really for what it like teases and adds to later on down the road, I do think it is a pretty solid episode. So, anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and be sure to come back next time, as in like episode number 51, because the one that we're going to be talking about after this, I believe, is none other than The Man Who Killed Batman, which is a pretty great one. So, yep, all I got to say. Thanks for watching, everybody. Comment, like, and subscribe. Peace out.